If you feel like you can't stop hearing about testosterone everywhere you turn lately, it is not in your head. From T-maxing influencers on social media to testing in the military, testosterone is trending with a capital T, not a low T. See what I did there? Now, Men's Health is digging in with its feature, T-Nation. It includes a survey that reveals how American men feel about testosterone. 70% say their levels are important to them, and 49% feel that their testosterone levels are a measure of their masculinity. First, on CBS Mornings, Men's Health editorial director Richard Dorment joins us along with CBS News chief medical correspondent Dr. Jon LaPook. Welcome, fellas.
Great to be here.
All right, Rich, let's start with you. You found in this survey that 40% of men say their testosterone levels are more important to them today than they were a year ago. What's behind this cultural shift in this big focus on testosterone?
So you've got this perfect storm of cultural, social, and scientific forces coming together for what's called TRT, or testosterone replacement therapy. You've got new science emerging that eases a lot of the fears that we had about the cardiovascular and prostate risks that associated with TRT. You've got actors and podcasters, even politicians talking about their testosterone protocols. You've got all this happening in an optimization culture where everything can be rendered in a number. And then you've got these telehealth companies flooding your social media feeds telling you that this is the silver bullet that's going to change everything for you. So when you put all of those together, you've got that number where 40% of men say that their testosterone levels are more important than they were a year ago.
So, John, you know, even 10 years ago, we were told, eat well, work out, get some sleep, and that is how you optimize your body as you age.
It still is.
So that's still the advice. But explain the function of testosterone and what are the symptoms of someone who has low testosterone?
So the symptoms include decreased libido, decreased sexual activity, erectile dysfunction, just feeling tired all the time, decreased muscle mass. Well, the first few of those are very common in a lot of people for a lot of different reasons, right? I mean, it may not, we want to be simplistic and say, oh, just measure your testosterone. If it's low, give it and everything will be good.
Right.
But it's complicated, and why it's something that you need to really talk to your healthcare provider about.
If I don't have any of those things on that list, but I want to look like some of those dudes that were teasing in the video, right? Would you say to me, Vlad, I can prescribe testosterone to you? I don't have anything that you put, you know, I'm good in all marks. But
it is what a shill. It's the perfect question.
What a shill.
It is, because the Endocrine Society and the American Urologic Association specifically say you do not just screen the general population for testosterone unless you have symptoms.
So that's your recommendation. Unless you have symptoms,
that is
you should not rush to go get tested.
Right. If you do have symptoms, talk to your healthcare provider. Maybe it's something in your lifestyle. Maybe you need to lose weight. Maybe there are other things going on. Maybe you know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
So, Rich, you are on TRT.
I am. I have been for about 6 years.
And what do you want people to understand about it?
So I think the most interesting thing that I have found is that in this conversation, we tend to get oversimplified. We get turned into cartoons who just want big muscles. We photographed 22 men. We interviewed over 2,200 men in our survey, and we found a lot of the through line, which is that men feel exhausted. They feel like they're losing drive and motivation. They feel like they're gaining weight and losing muscle and struggling with libido and sleep. And so they don't want to become someone new. They don't want to become superheroes. They just want to feel like themselves again. So I think that has to be the starting point, that you don't want to, T-max your way into big muscles. It's really about resetting the baseline so that you have enough energy and enough drive to do what you really want to do.
So, John, everybody talks about the upside, the energy, the muscle, the libido, but talk to me about the downsides. I did ask a doctor. You and I talked about this about a year ago, and I asked my doctor, and one of the things that she said was, if I do this for you, you're going to have to be on it pretty much for the rest of your life, because if you get off of it, that could be a problem.
Well, there are things that can happen when you get off of it. I mean, for one thing, you can have infertility, because what happens is you have a negative feedback, so your testicles shrink. It's your own production of testosterone go down, and once you get off of it, you may actually have infertility for a while until sort of your body builds itself up. So that's one thing. Obviously, things like acne, but there are some serious side effects. In the big Traverse study that looked at the cardiovascular safety, these were people at increased risk of heart disease, 45 and over. But I spoke to one of the authors of that study yesterday, and some of the bad things that happened, or the risks, were pulmonary embolus, so clot in the lung, atrial fibrillation, which was an abnormal heart rate, and also acute kidney failure. And the big surprise, which was published after that original study, was an increase in fractures.
Wow.
Now, if you're a soldier, for example, we'll talk about the recent DOD suggestion. Fractures is an increased risk of fractures is not something you want to have.
You're right about that. I did want to talk about the Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, but I want to talk about the idea of testosterone being linked directly to your masculinity. Because that's what we see online mostly, especially when it comes to the youth.
Sure.
My son's friends are all in their early 20s, and this is all they're talking about. And in my head, I said this just the other day. I said, you're too young to be thinking about this. So what do you guys think about what's going on social media?
I think you're right. I think they've got their whole lives to worry about this stuff. They shouldn't be worrying about it now. But look, if you look at the advertising that's coming out of these telehealth companies, you see these big muscle guys, looking amazing and having the best time ever. Why wouldn't I want to look like that? You also go into some of the darker corners of the so-called manosphere. Low T is synonymous with stuff like soy boy or betas or other insults that men are hurling at each other for being less than a man. What I find fascinating about that statistic, where nearly half of men are tying testosterone to their sense of masculinity, is that a testosterone test only measures a hormone. It doesn't measure whether you're a good parent, whether you're a good partner, whether you're a good friend, whether you're a good citizen. All these things that we use at Men's Health and that I think we'd all agree are the real measures of a man or measures of masculinity. That's just not showing up in a T test.
That's well said. We could talk about this all show long.
Yep.
Actually, come back and talk about it. That's what we're going to do. Richard Dorment and Dr. Jon LaPook, thank you so much. The Men's Health summer issue is on the newsstands now, and Vlad will be on the cover soon.